I think I didn't do anything wrong, just followed my heart to happiness. But now, as I open the envelope from the lawyer, I realize my husband is not the fool I thought, and the consequences are here, official and cold. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The dining room felt suffocating that Tuesday evening. Simon sat across from me, mechanically cutting his chicken, while 9-year-old Clara chatted about her school art project. His tie hung loose around his neck. Another late night at the law firm, etched in the tired lines around his eyes. "Daddy, look what I painted today." Clara held up a watercolor of our family, 3 stick figures holding hands in front of our suburban house. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Simon managed, but I could see his mind was elsewhere, probably thinking about depositions or case files. Always work, never us. I pulled out my phone under the table, my heart racing as I saw Luke's name on the screen. "Missing you already. Can't wait for tomorrow." My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. "Me too. This feels so right. Aurelia, could you put that away during dinner?" Simon's voice carried an edge of irritation. "It's work," I snapped back, slipping the phone into my lap. "Some of us don't get to leave everything at the office." Clara's face fell. She hated when we argued, and lately, that seemed to be all we did. "I'm trying to spend time with my family," Simon said quietly. "Your family?" I laughed bitterly. "When was the last time you asked how my day was? When did you last notice I got my hair done or bought a new dress?" Simon set down his fork. "Aurelia, I work 60-hour weeks to provide for this family. I'm sorry if I seem distracted, but nothing. You're never really here, even when you're sitting right there." The truth was, I'd felt invisible for months. Simon came home exhausted, ate dinner in silence, helped Clara with homework, and fell asleep watching the news. We hadn't had a real conversation in weeks, hadn't been intimate in longer than that. Then Luke had walked back into my life. Luke Monroe, my college boyfriend, the one who got away. We'd reconnected through social media 3 months ago, and when I learned he'd moved back to town, everything changed. He remembered things about me that Simon had forgotten. He made me feel alive again. My phone buzzed again. Simon's eyes flicked toward me, suspicion creeping across his features. "Who keeps texting you?" he asked. "Just Jenna. Girl stuff." The lie came so easily now. After dinner, I helped Clara with her homework while Simon retreated to his home office. Through the doorway, I could see him hunched over his laptop, probably billing more hours. "Mommy, are you and Daddy fighting?" Clara asked, her pencil hovering over her math worksheet. "Sometimes grown-ups disagree, honey. It doesn't mean we don't love you." But even as I said it, I wondered if that was true. Did Simon still love me? Did I still love him? The butterflies I felt when Luke texted suggested maybe I'd already found my answer. Later that night, as Simon brushed his teeth, I lay in bed scrolling through Luke's Instagram photos. He looked good, better than good. The years had been kind to him. In college, he'd been the guy every girl wanted, charming and spontaneous. He'd broken my heart when he moved to California after graduation, but now he was back, divorced, and very interested in rekindling what we'd had. "You're on that phone again," Simon observed, climbing into bed beside me. "Just checking emails." He reached over and switched off his bedside lamp. "We should talk soon, Aurelia. Really talk." "About what?" "About us. About what's happening here." My stomach clenched. Did he know? Had he seen something? "I don't know what you mean," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Simon was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I love you, Aurelia. I know I've been distracted lately, but I love you and Clara more than anything. If something's wrong, we can fix it." Guilt twisted in my chest, but I pushed it away. Too little, too late. I'd already tasted what it felt like to be desired again, to be someone's priority. "Good night, Simon," I whispered. As his breathing evened out beside me, I carefully typed out another message to Luke. Tomorrow can't come soon enough. I didn't see Simon's eyes open in the darkness, watching the glow of my phone screen illuminate my face. The next morning, I took extra care getting ready. A new dress, the perfume Luke had always loved, makeup applied with precision. Simon had already left for work as usual, but not before making Clara's lunch and leaving me a note about picking up groceries. Always the responsible one, always the predictable one. At the office, I could barely concentrate on my administrative tasks. Luke and I had planned to meet for lunch at Cafe Magnolia, a little place across town where we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. "Someone's glowing today," my colleague Janet commented as she passed my desk. I smiled secretively. For the first time in years, I felt beautiful, desired, alive. My phone rang around 11. Simon's name appeared on the screen. "Hi," I answered, trying to sound busy. "Hey, I was thinking maybe we could grab lunch today. I have a break between meetings." My heart sank. "Oh, I can't. I'm swamped here." "Rain check?" "Sure," he said, but I could hear the disappointment. "Maybe dinner then? We could try that new Italian place." "We'll see. I might have to work late tonight. Big project coming up." Another lie. They were getting easier. After hanging up, I felt a pang of something. Guilt, regret, but it quickly faded when Luke texted, "Counting down the minutes until I see you." Lunch was everything I'd been missing. Luke was attentive, funny, charming. He remembered how I liked my coffee, asked about my dreams, made me feel like the most interesting woman in the world. "You look incredible, Leah," he said, using the nickname only he had ever called me. "Marriage agrees with you." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Does it? Because I feel like I'm disappearing." "Simon's an idiot if he doesn't see what he has." Luke reached across the table and touched my hand. The contact sent electricity through me. "I never should have let you go," he continued. "Biggest mistake of my life." "Luke, I mean it. These past few weeks, talking to you, seeing you, it's like we're picking up where we left off. Like no time has passed at all." He was saying everything I'd longed to hear from Simon, everything I'd needed to hear. "What are you saying?" I whispered. "I'm saying maybe we deserve a second chance. Maybe we were always meant to find our way back to each other." When he kissed me in the parking lot, I didn't pull away. I kissed him back with 15 years of pent-up longing and frustration. That afternoon, back at the office, I was floating. Everything seemed brighter, more vivid. I was so lost in my thoughts that I almost didn't notice the flower delivery. "Aurelia Vane?" the delivery boy asked. A dozen red roses sat on my desk, beautiful and damning. There was no card. "Who are they from?" Janet asked, appearing beside me with obvious curiosity. I'm not sure," I stammered. But I knew. Luke was romantic like that, impulsive. Simon hadn't sent me flowers in years. I quickly moved them to the floor beside my desk, but the damage was done. Several colleagues had seen them, including Janet, who was notorious for gossip. My phone rang. Simon again. "Hi, honey. How's your day going?" "Fine. Busy." I glanced nervously at the roses. "Listen, I was thinking about what you said last night, about me not paying attention. You're right, and I want to do better. Maybe this weekend we could—" "Simon, I really can't talk right now. I'm in the middle of something important." "Of course, sorry, I'll let you go." After I hung up, I stared at the roses. They were beautiful, but they felt like evidence of something I wasn't ready to name. Around 4 o'clock, my friend Jenna stopped by my desk. We'd been friends since college, and she knew about my history with Luke. "So, how was lunch?" she asked with a knowing smile. I pulled her aside, away from listening ears. "It was amazing. God, Jenna, I forgot how he made me feel." "Aurelia, be careful. You're married. You have Clara to think about." "I know that, but I can't help how I feel. Simon and I, we're like strangers living in the same house. When was the last time he really looked at me? Really saw me?" Jenna frowned. "Marriage goes through rough patches." That doesn't mean... It's more than a rough patch. We're dying a slow death, and I refuse to spend the rest of my life feeling invisible. And Luke? What does he want? He wants me. He says we deserve a second chance. Aurelia. Jenna's voice carried a warning. Luke hurt you before, badly, and he's divorced for a reason. People change. We've both grown up. But even as I said it, I wondered if that was true. Luke had always been charming but unreliable, passionate but commitment-phobic. Still, the way he looked at me, the way he made me feel, surely that meant something. As I was packing up to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Nice flowers. Interesting lunch spot, too. A friend. My blood ran cold. Someone had seen us. Someone knew. I looked around the office, paranoid now. Who had sent this? What did they want? Another text came through. Simon deserves better. My hands shook as I deleted both messages. This was getting complicated, but I was in too deep to stop now. Luke made me feel things I'd forgotten I could feel. For the first time in years, I was happy. I just had to be more careful. The following week, Miriam called to invite us for Sunday dinner. Simon's mother had always been polite to me, but I could sense her disapproval lately. She was old-fashioned, believed in duty and sacrifice, things that felt suffocating to me now. Do we have to go? I asked Simon as he hung up the phone. She's my mother, Aurelia, and Clara loves seeing her grandmother. Fine, but I can't stay long. I have things to do. Simon studied my face. What things? Just things. Errands. Girl time with Jenna. Another lie. I was meeting Luke at his apartment. We'd been seeing each other almost daily now, stealing moments whenever we could. The guilt was there, but it was overshadowed by the intoxicating feeling of being wanted, being chosen. Sunday morning, I dressed carefully. Not too nice, that would raise questions, but nice enough to feel confident. Luke had been texting me all morning, telling me how much he missed me, how he couldn't wait to see me later. At Miriam's house, the tension was immediate. She hugged Simon and Clara warmly, but her embrace for me was perfunctory. "You look tired, dear," she said, her sharp eyes taking in my appearance. "I've been working a lot lately," I replied. Simon's sister Leela was there with her husband and kids. She'd always been protective of Simon, and lately, I felt her watching me with suspicion. During dinner, I found myself distracted, checking my phone whenever I thought no one was looking. Luke had sent me a photo from his apartment, a bottle of wine, and 2 glasses waiting. "Aurelia, could you help me in the kitchen?" Miriam asked after the main course. I followed her reluctantly, knowing what was coming. "Is everything all right between you and Simon?" she asked directly. "Of course. Why would you ask that?" "He seems sad, worried, and you seem distant." "We're fine, Miriam. Every marriage has its ups and downs." She studied me for a long moment. "Simon is a good man, a good father and husband. I hope you remember that." "Are you implying I don't?" "I'm implying that some people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone." Back in the dining room, the conversation had turned to work. Simon was telling his father about a difficult case when my phone buzzed again. "Luke, where are you? I'm waiting." I quickly typed back, "Family dinner. We'll be there soon." "Who's that?" Clara asked innocently. "Just Jenna," I said automatically. But Lila was watching me, her eyes narrowed. "Jenna texts you a lot lately." "We're planning a girls' trip," I improvised. "How nice," Miriam said coolly. "I'm sure Simon would enjoy a weekend away too." I felt trapped, suffocated by their questions and judgment. These people didn't understand what I was going through, how lonely I'd been, how invisible I'd felt in my own marriage. "Actually," I said, standing abruptly, "I need to go. I have plans." "What plans?" Simon asked, surprised. "I told you, girl time with Jenna." "But we just got here. Clara wanted to show everyone her art project." "Clara can show them. I'll see it later." I could feel everyone's eyes on me as I gathered my purse. Clara looked confused and hurt. "Mommy, don't go," she said quietly. Guilt stabbed through me, but Luke was waiting. He made me feel alive in ways Simon never had. "I'll see you at home, sweetheart," I said, kissing Clara's forehead. Simon followed me to the front door. "Aurelia, what's going on? This isn't like you." "Maybe you don't know me as well as you think." "Then help me understand. Talk to me." For a moment, I almost wavered. Simon looked genuinely confused and hurt. But then my phone buzzed again, Luke wondering where I was, and the moment passed. "I'll be home later," I said and left. At Luke's apartment, I tried to push away the guilt and focus on the present. He'd made dinner, lit candles, put on music. It was romantic and thoughtful, everything I'd been missing. "You seem tense," he observed as we sat on his couch with wine. "Family dinner. Simon's mother doesn't like me." "Her loss. You're incredible, Leah." He pulled me closer, and I let myself get lost in his arms, in his kisses, in the feeling of being desired. "I've been thinking," he said later as we lay entwined on his couch, "about us, about the future." "What about it?" "I want more than stolen afternoons. I want to wake up next to you. I want to build a life together." My heart raced. "Luke, I know it's complicated, but we're not kids anymore. We know what we want." "And what do we want?" "Each other. A real chance this time." When I got home that night, the house was dark except for a light in Simon's office. I found him at his desk, laptop open, but he wasn't working. He was just sitting there, staring at nothing. "You're up late," I said. He looked at me, and something in his expression made me uneasy. "We need to talk, Aurelia." "It's late, Simon. Can't it wait?" "No, it can't." I sat down across from him, my heart pounding. Did he know? Had someone told him? "I know something's wrong," he said quietly. "I know you're unhappy. I know I've been working too much, been distracted. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, take a vacation, whatever you need." "Simon, I love you, Aurelia. I love our family. Please, just tell me what's wrong so we can fix it." Looking at him then, I felt the full weight of what I was doing, but I was in too deep now, too invested in the fantasy Luke had painted for us. "Some things can't be fixed," I said quietly. Something died in Simon's eyes then. He nodded slowly, as if he'd been expecting this answer, but hoping against it. "I see," he said. I went to bed alone that night. Simon stayed in his office until dawn, and when I woke up, he was already gone. 2 weeks later, I discovered I was pregnant. I stared at the test in Luke's bathroom, my hands shaking. This changed everything. This made it real in a way that scared and thrilled me simultaneously. "Leah, you okay in there?" Luke called through the door. I opened the door and showed him the test. His face went white. "Are you sure? Maybe we should get another test, or—" "I'm sure," I said quietly. "I'm pregnant, Luke." He sat down heavily on his bed, running his hands through his hair. This wasn't the reaction I'd expected. "This is good news, right?" I asked, sitting beside him. "You said you wanted a future together." I did. I didn't expect it to happen so fast." "These things happen, but now we don't have to hide anymore. Now we can be together for real." Luke was quiet for a long moment. "What about Simon? What about Clara?" "I'll tell Simon I want a divorce. Clara will adjust. Kids are resilient." "Aurelia, this is huge. This is someone's life we're talking about." "Our life," I corrected. "Our baby's life." But something had shifted in Luke's demeanor. The easy charm was gone, replaced by something that looked like panic. Over the next few days, Luke became increasingly distant. He didn't return my calls as quickly, made excuses about why he couldn't see me. When we did meet, he seemed distracted, nervous. "Are you having second thoughts?" I asked him directly one afternoon. "No, of course not. I just need time to process everything." "Time? Luke, I'm carrying your baby. Simon's getting suspicious." I can't keep living this double life forever. I know. Just give me a few more days to figure things out. But I could see the doubt in his eyes, the fear. The same look he'd had in college when things got too serious, too real. At home, the atmosphere was arctic. Simon barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was about practical matters, Clara's schedule, household bills, nothing personal. He'd moved into the guest room, claiming he was working late and didn't want to disturb me. Clara sensed the tension and had become clingy, asking repeatedly if Daddy and I were getting divorced. Of course not, sweetheart, I lied, but even she seemed to see through it. Miriam had stopped calling. Lila openly ignored me when our paths crossed. Even Jenna seemed distant lately, making excuses when I suggested getting together. I think you need to slow down, she'd said during our last conversation. Think about what you're really doing. But I couldn't slow down. Not now. The pregnancy had accelerated everything, made choices that had seemed theoretical, suddenly urgent and real. A week after I told Luke about the baby, he stopped answering my calls altogether. His texts became sporadic, then stopped entirely. When I went to his apartment, his neighbor said he'd gone out of town on business. Panic set in. This couldn't be happening. Not again. Luke had promised things would be different this time. I called his office, but his secretary said he was unavailable. I left message after message, each one more desperate than the last. Finally, after 3 days of silence, he called. Luke, thank God. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. Leah, we need to talk. Something in his tone made my blood run cold. Okay, when can you see me? That's just it. I don't think we should see each other anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? What are you talking about? This whole thing. It's gotten too complicated. You're married, you have a daughter, and now with the baby. Our baby, Luke, our baby. I'm not ready for this kind of responsibility. I thought I was, but I'm not. You said you wanted a future together. You said, I know what I said, but that was before things got real, before there were real consequences. I felt like I was drowning. So you're just going to abandon me, like you did before? It's better this way, for everyone. Better for who? For you? What about me? What about our baby? You'll figure it out. You always do. The line went dead. I sat in my car outside his apartment building for hours, calling and calling, but he never answered. Finally, his neighbor told me he'd moved out that morning. Luke was gone. Again. When I got home that evening, I found an envelope on the kitchen counter with my name on it. Inside was a letter from Simon's lawyer, formally requesting a meeting to discuss matrimonial matters. Simon knew. About the affair, about everything. And now I was completely alone. The mediation meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I spent the weekend in a panic, calling every lawyer I could find, but most wanted retainers I couldn't afford. Finally, I found someone willing to meet with me on short notice. Mrs. Vane, Attorney Patricia Wells said, reviewing the paperwork Simon's lawyer had sent, I have to be honest with you. Your husband has been very thorough in documenting irregularities in your marriage. What kind of irregularities? She opened a file and spread out photographs, phone records, credit card statements. My stomach dropped. There were photos of Luke and me at Cafe Magnolia, at his apartment building, kissing in parking lots, phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between us, credit card charges for lunches and hotels I'd lied about. How did he get all this? Private investigator, most likely. It's all legal, obtained through proper channels. Mrs. Vane, were you having an extramarital affair? I couldn't deny it anymore. The evidence was overwhelming. Yes, but it's not what it looks like. My marriage was already over. Simon and I haven't been happy for years. That may be true, but adultery is still adultery in the eyes of the court. And with a child involved, what does that mean for Clara? Your husband is seeking primary custody. Given the evidence, and the fact that you're pregnant with another man's child. The words hit me like a slap. How does he know about the pregnancy? Medical records. Your insurance company sent an explanation of benefits to the house. Of course, I'd been so careful about hiding the affair, but I'd forgotten about the practical details. At home, the atmosphere was unbearable. Simon was coldly polite, speaking to me only when necessary, and only about Clara. He'd hired a babysitter for the evenings when he worked late, making it clear he didn't trust me alone with our daughter. This is ridiculous, I told him one evening after Clara had gone to bed. I'm her mother. Are you? He asked quietly. Because mothers don't abandon their families for their ex-boyfriends. I didn't abandon anyone. You drove me away with your neglect, your indifference. I worked hard to provide for this family. I'm sorry if that wasn't enough for you. It wasn't about money, Simon. It was about feeling invisible, feeling unloved. So you found someone else to make you feel loved. How's that working out for you? His words stung because they were true. Luke had vanished the moment things got difficult, just like he had 15 years ago. I made mistakes, I admitted, but so did you. We both let our marriage die. No, Aurelia, I tried to save our marriage. You killed it. The mediation meeting was a nightmare. Simon sat calmly beside his lawyer while mine fumbled through my defense. The evidence against me was overwhelming and damning. My client is seeking primary physical custody of the minor child, Simon's lawyer stated. Given Mrs. Vane's recent behavior and questionable judgment, we believe this is in the child's best interest. That's not fair, I protested. I love Clara. I would never hurt her. You already have hurt her, Simon said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken directly to me in weeks. You've destroyed her family, her sense of security. She asks me every day if it's her fault that Mommy doesn't want to live with us anymore. Guilt crashed over me. I hadn't meant for Clara to get hurt. I'd just wanted to be happy. I never said I didn't want to live with you, I whispered. Simon's lawyer slid another document across the table. These are text messages between Mrs. Vane and her paramour, discussing their future together and her plans to leave the marital home. I stared at the printed texts, my own words condemning me. Messages where I'd told Luke I couldn't wait to start our new life together, where I'd talked about Clara adjusting to having 2 daddies. Mrs. Vane, the mediator said gently, do you dispute the authenticity of these messages? I couldn't. They were real, every damning word. I want to work this out, I said desperately. I want to save my marriage. Simon laughed bitterly. Now you want to save it? After you're pregnant with another man's child? After he abandoned you? How did you know about Luke leaving town? I had him served with papers for alienation of affection. His landlord was very helpful about his forwarding address. Turns out he moved back to California. Didn't even leave you a note, did he? The humiliation was complete. Everyone in that room knew exactly what had happened, how thoroughly I'd been played and abandoned. We're prepared to offer supervised visitation, Simon's lawyer continued. 2 hours every other weekend, with a court-appointed supervisor present. Supervised? I'm not a danger to my daughter. You introduced her to your lover, Simon said quietly. You told her she'd have 2 daddies. You put your affair above her stability and well-being. That shows questionable judgment at best. I looked around the room, desperate for an ally, but found none. Even my own lawyer looked embarrassed by the evidence against me. I need time to think, I said. Take all the time you need, Simon replied, but Clara is staying with me. The final hearing was 3 weeks later. I'd spent that time trying to rebuild my life, but everything was falling apart. I'd lost my job. Too many personal calls and unexplained absences had finally caught up with me. My father offered financial support, but even he seemed disappointed in my choices. You had a good man, he said during one of our conversations. Simon provided for you, was faithful to you. I don't understand why that wasn't enough. My friends had mostly abandoned me. Jenna was polite but distant, making it clear she disapproved of my actions. Other mutual friends had chosen sides, and they'd chosen Simon. The pregnancy was progressing, a constant reminder of my poor choices. I'd considered my options, but ultimately decided to continue with it. This baby might be all I had left. In court, Simon looked composed and professional in his dark suit. I'd done my best to look respectable, but I felt like everyone could see through me, could see what I really was. Your Honor, Simon's attorney began, this case is about what's best for 9-year-old Clara Vane. The evidence will show that Mrs. Vane abandoned her family responsibilities to pursue an extramarital affair, demonstrating a pattern of poor judgment and selfish decision-making that makes her unsuitable for primary custody. My lawyer did her best, arguing that I'd made mistakes but was still Clara's mother, that I deserved a chance to make amends. But the evidence was overwhelming. The photos were entered into evidence, images of Luke and me in intimate embraces, holding hands, kissing. The text messages were read aloud, my words about leaving Simon and starting a new life sounding selfish and callous in the sterile courtroom. Mrs. Vane, the judge said when I took the stand, can you explain to the court why you believe you should have primary custody of your daughter? Because I love her, Your Honor. I made mistakes, but I love Clara more than anything. Yet you were prepared to leave her father and disrupt her home life for another relationship. I believed that I would be a better mother if I was happy. I thought Clara would benefit from having a mother who wasn't miserable. And where is this other man now? The question hung in the air like an accusation. He left town. He abandoned you when he learned of your pregnancy. Yes, Your Honor. I see. And do you believe your judgment in this matter was sound? I wanted to lie, to make excuses, but the evidence was too clear. No, Your Honor, I made poor choices. Simon's testimony was devastating in its quiet dignity. He spoke about working extra hours to provide for his family, about coming home to an increasingly distant wife, about his attempts to save their marriage. I suggested counseling multiple times, he said. I tried to plan date nights, to reconnect with my wife. She always had excuses, always had somewhere else to be. And how has the situation affected your daughter? Simon's composure cracked slightly. She's confused and hurt. She blames herself for her mother's choices. She asks me constantly if Mommy is coming home, if we can be a family again. What are you seeking from this court? Primary physical custody of Clara, with supervised visitation for her mother. I want Clara to have a relationship with Aurelia, but only in a structured environment that prioritizes Clara's emotional well-being. When it came time for closing arguments, I knew I'd lost. The evidence was too damning, my choices too obviously selfish. Mrs. Vane, my attorney argued desperately, is a woman who made mistakes in a failing marriage. But she is still Clara's mother, and that bond should not be severed lightly. Simon's lawyer was more direct. Mrs. Vane chose her own desires over her family's well-being. She introduced her lover to her daughter, telling the child she would have 2 daddies. She was prepared to abandon her marriage and disrupt her daughter's life for a man who ultimately abandoned her. This shows a fundamental lack of judgment that makes her unsuitable for primary custody. The judge took a brief recess before rendering his decision. I sat in the hallway, alone, watching Simon surrounded by his family and friends. Miriam, Lila, colleagues from his firm, all there to support him. I had no one. When court reconvened, the judge's words were measured but final. In matters of child custody, the court's primary concern is the best interest of the child. While the court recognizes that Mrs. Vane loves her daughter, the evidence shows a pattern of decision-making that prioritizes her own desires over her child's stability and well-being. My heart sank. Therefore, the court awards primary physical custody to Mr. Simon Vane. Mrs. Vane will have supervised visitation every other weekend for 2 hours, with the possibility of expanded visitation pending completion of parenting classes and counseling. Additionally, the court grants Mr. Vane's request for divorce on grounds of adultery. Mrs. Vane will receive no spousal support due to her marital misconduct. The marital home and primary assets will remain with Mr. Vane to provide stability for the minor child. I felt like I was drowning. I'd lost everything: my husband, my daughter, my home, my friends, my reputation. As the courtroom emptied, Simon approached me. I expected anger or triumph, but his expression was sad. "I never wanted it to end like this," he said quietly. "Then why did it have to?" "Because you chose someone else over our family, and when that didn't work out, you expected to come back like nothing had happened." "I'm sorry, Simon, I'm so sorry." "I know you are, but sorry doesn't undo the damage." He walked away, Clara's small hand in his. She looked back at me once, confusion and hurt in her young eyes. I stood alone in the courthouse hallway, 6 months pregnant with another man's child, having lost everything that mattered. The man I'd left my family for had disappeared at the first sign of real responsibility. The husband I'd betrayed had proven to be stronger and smarter than I'd ever given him credit for. I'd thought I was following my heart to happiness. Instead, I'd followed it to complete destruction. As I walked out of the courthouse into the harsh afternoon sun, I realized that Simon had been right about one thing. Some things, once broken, can never be fixed. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news about the custody hearing. You got what you deserved." I deleted it and kept walking, alone with the consequences of my choices. 6 months later, I gave birth to a daughter I named Hope, a cruel irony, given that Hope was the one thing I'd lost completely. Luke never called, never sent a card, never acknowledged her existence. Simon allowed supervised visits with Clara, but they were awkward and painful. She was polite but distant, and I could see the wariness in her eyes. I'd broken something precious between us, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. I found a small apartment across town and a job that barely covered my expenses. The life I'd dreamed of with Luke, the happiness I'd been so sure was waiting for me, had been nothing but an illusion. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered what would have happened if I'd chosen differently. If I'd talked to Simon about our problems instead of seeking validation elsewhere. If I'd fought for my marriage instead of abandoning it. But those were questions without answers, regrets that served no purpose except to torment me. I'd gambled everything on a fantasy and lost it all. Simon had rebuilt his life with quiet dignity, focusing on Clara and his career. He'd even started dating someone new, a kind woman who treated Clara well and didn't carry the baggage of betrayal. As for me, I was exactly where my choices had led me, alone, with only my regrets for company.